Hello, everyone. This is Frank Data Di Lorenzo. Welcome to yet another edition of Quick Launch Live, where we take 15 minutes to talk about tips and tricks around being data driven, what tools are out there to use. Certainly, Power BI is a big focus, Excel. What does it mean to be data driven? So, we have a great session today, and I want to get right to it. Quick on the logistics. If you're with us today, please go ahead and put a one in the comments so we know you're here. More importantly, if you have a question, please put it in the comments. We like this to be as interactive as possible. And most importantly, we want everybody to come away with some thoughts and ideas that they can build on. If you watch this after the fact, all these recordings are on our Preferred Strategies company page on LinkedIn. Put a two in the chat if you would. And if you want us to speak with you in more detail about any topic, hey, Chase, good morning. Great that you're here. Put a three or just reach out. Anybody at Preferred Strategies would love to talk to you about your data. This is what we do. So let's get right into it. Today, I'm very excited to introduce a guest we've had before, but he was advertised as a rock star for this one. So really excited to bring on our VP of Product Management, Ben Harrison. Ben, say hello.
Hi, good morning, Frank. Good morning, everybody.
All right. Hey, Jim. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. So let's jump right to the content. 15 minutes goes by quickly. So as a quick intro, we're going to talk about the WIP process, building up to that forever elusive miracle WIP. It's ever evolving process, and Ben's going to take us through a focus on the backlog process today. And my typical service announcement to everybody in each one of these. Keep in mind, using Power BI, which is such a great tool, itself doesn't make you data driven. The premise of everything we do is based on transforming your data so you can unlock the power of all these tools and truly become data driven. So, transforming your data into a cohesive reporting model, that's really the secret sauce that gets you there. Okay. Work in process really is a work in progress. It's an ever evolving process that companies are always seeking to improve. So today, Ben's going to focus on managing backlog and the effect on WIP, review the backlog process, spread over time, backlog quality by contract. Finally, I want you to all keep in mind you need to get the most out of your data. So if you don't reveal some insights soon, data, we're going to be forced to slice, dice, and drill into you. So, with that, Ben, I'm very happy to hand it over to you. So, let me do just that.
Okay, great. So thanks, Frank. I just want to remind about 2 sessions ago, we talked about kind of the beginning WIP, and I really had emphasized the idea that besides having that governed data model to provide you a WIP that you can do the analysis on real quickly, you can do the validation, looking for anomalies or errors that need to be fixed before you say this WIP is done. The other part of that was that you want to be able to see that data over time because there's really important things that you see in over time, particularly in cost and excess, bills and excess, where you're looking for maybe a job that's been in a cost and excess position for 4 months in a row. You can see that. So that time-based trending is important. I want to expand on that today, and particularly around backlog, and I'm going to end up with a little look at some profit fade issues, the same idea of over time, how that looks. But thinking about backlog, one of the real challenges with it is you got this number at the end of the month, right? Each month you publish a WIP report, you've got a backlog. And in my business, understanding the quality of that backlog was really important. So one of the things I might do with that backlog is I might plot it like on a bubble graph here, a scatter graph, where I can see I've got a lot of backlog here in my retail kind of division, 200 million almost of backlog, and it's at a pretty reasonable percentage, but less than the rest of my backlog. The nice thing about these three dots is I've got really good profit margins on it, but I don't have much backlog on that, right? So then the other thing about that size of the dot drives the profit size. So I'm seeing a lot of information in one single view here. I'm getting the amount of backlog along the x-axis. So this is about 200 million in backlog, and the percent of profit on that backlog on this graph, and then the dot size is showing me the value of the profit dollars that are in that. So again, I think visually this gives a really good idea of what's the quality of my backlog, what's it look like. The thing about this, like the cost in excess, bills in excess, is you might want to start seeing this over time, right? So I can actually go and start changing the time frame here and looking at changes. So this, I must have got a brand new bunch of work here in that month. So I'm not only looking at what is my backlog quality right now, but what's that change in quality over time. This really mattered to me. We had um, a job at the company I used to work for that had gone really upside down. It was a tremendous drain on us. So I actually track that across the chart like this to say, when was that essentially bad backlog? It was down here near zero, and I want to know when that dot was going to go all the way to zero and get off um, uh, my books, right? So essentially, I kind of working through the downside of this. Likewise, it could be with good jobs, right? I've got a brand new good job. It's got great profit on it. I like to understand, how long is that going to contribute to my bottom line? So backlog quality for me is not just a snapshot in time, but it's how it's changing over time. Make sense so far?
Excellent, Ben. This is good. And you would not catch this so easily in a typical text column row report.
Yes, you wouldn't, and I think that's the point of looking visually at different types of charts. And again, I like these scatter graphs because you can actually get a lot of information on one piece of paper. You can also play it over time, so you can watch it. Kind of watch almost a video of what's happening to your backlog. In this case, it's shrinking away. So that is kind of a snapshot of a backlog month by month by month. But another problem people have with the backlog is that if I'm going to forecast my year, I'm going to look at, how am I going to finish this year? I need to know if I've got 200 million in backlog right now, how much of that's going to be done before the end of my fiscal year, and some of that's going to roll into next year. So you're going to want to have a way to spread your backlog. Now, most ERP systems probably have a tool to do this. I know in Vista there's a contract spread tool on the Contract Master. In JD Edwards, there's you can create essentially forecast records with ledger types in the kind of the general ledger table. But the difficulty there is most people are taking this data down to Excel and spreading it there, which is actually a way that is pretty common and pretty useful, pretty easy. The challenge with that is if I actually want to look at my forecast over time, so pretend this is my current date and this is my forecast, I spread that data out. I'm looking at new jobs, increases in backlog as profit comes in, what am I expecting to get there? This is where I'm going to start understanding what what am I going to return this year? What's my forecast for this year? And again, an important part of managing my business is getting that forecast right. If you start thinking about analyzing this right now, I've got it by maybe work group, paving, residential, retail, underground. Maybe I should look at it by contract start. So again, the idea of analyzing is I can start using data from my data model
Nice.
to start drilling into that data and realizing, oh, wow, I've got a really good, healthy backlog on retail. It looks like I've got some risk in the backlog that I acquired in 2016. Again, my data is a couple of years old in retail. So this is maybe an area of concern for me. This is an area of strength, but I can start understanding my forecast much better if I'm able to spread that data over time. Question so far, Frank, or am I? I
Nope,
always know what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I'm saying it as
nothing
clearly as
so
I hope.
far. Keep on rolling. This is great. And Ben, I will. You don't have to show it, but you said something that triggered to be drilling down. I think part of the magic for folks that are doing this process is to be able to verify the numbers are correct. And oftentimes, when I was implementing ERPs, I'd see a PM that had to go run and get a history report to try and marry up to the totals he was seeing in his spreadsheet and whatnot. So I think that drill down piece is really key. So I just wanted to call that out.
So yeah, thank you, Frank, and that is important. The model I've built here, this is a mock-up of our data model. Just I've made it simple for the purposes of this presentation.
Sure.
And in fact, some of this is not in our out-of-the-box model because we need to know how do you want to forecast that backlog? How do you want to spread that backlog? What tool do you want to use to do that? But
Mhm.
once you've decided how that process should be, build that into your data model. Uh, Add that there because If it's just in these separate spreadsheets, there's no way to run that up, and there's no way to actually measure that accuracy over time, which is really important. You want to get better at forecasting, so you need to be able to say, okay, in April and May and June, I thought I was going to do 200 million this year, and by July, I thought I was doing 250, and by October, I thought I was doing 225. You want to understand what drove the ups and the downs of that, and you have to be able to see that over time to be able to understand next year how accurate are you at that forecasting. So again, get it into a data model so that you can do these fancier things with the WIP. Get back to the idea, these are numbers that come out of your WIP. You want to spend more time thinking and analyzing that WIP using additional tools than you're doing just when you print the WIP and you see a single number there at this month, this time, as opposed to overtime. Speaking of that forecast accuracy, something that always fascinated me, and I think in what I've kind of mucked up here, is the idea of profit fade. So this could, the idea of fade could apply to forecast accuracy. It could be applied to anything, but in this case, I'm looking at every contract I've got done, and then this is the percent complete job to date. So every job goes from 0% complete to 100% complete. And then this is the over under of my budget. Am I going to beat my budget, or am I going to lose my budget? And I'll tell you what you want to see here is you want to have certain patterns that really make sense. So I'm going to go look at Brett Favre. He's a great quarterback, obviously renowned. But if I'm looking at his jobs, I can see two patterns here that matter to me. This top one here, the groundwater system, I really like that pink line at the top. He ran the job, he beat his budget. As he worked his way through the job, he released the profit at the end. There's a little itty bit of fade here that I'd like him to explain what happened, but still, all in all, nice tracking of the time. The line I don't like, or the two lines I don't like, are these two bottom ones. If you look at this, he slowly lost money over the course of the job. That's agonizing. If you know you're going to lose money, what you want is a curve that's more of a drop down and straight flat. So I've got a curve that looks like that. Drew Brees, I think he did a good job here. He took on this blue line a big hit. He had a little bit more fade at the end, but my point is that this wasn't a long, slow bleed. It was let's take the big hit now. And that's the type of pattern you want to be able to see. Joe Montana, actually, on the opposite, he took a big gain at the beginning. Now that's ideal. That's a project manager who says, I know I got this profit. I'm going to claim that profit right away. The company can recognize that and bank on it. And I've got no profit fade at the end of the job. So again, you're looking at these trends to understand the accuracy of your project managers. Which are those are sandbaggers? Which one of those are optimists? Which ones just really don't know what they're doing? And we get this low loss over time, which is agonizing every month when you're going back and figuring out where you're going to end up on the job.
Well, I'm glad you didn't use Tom Brady, Ben, because once again, he'd probably have the best performance.
Well, actually, I do have Tom here. I think it's near dear. He doesn't have very many contracts, I'm afraid, but the one he did do has a lot of wild swinging in it. I wouldn't say because that's not his football performance, but as a project manager, maybe he's not so good.
And when you pulled up the first chart, admittedly, I didn't know if that was the performance or you found a copy of my last EKG. I could not.
That's it. Yeah. So again, I've done this type of look before. Again, this is not something that you just plug in our out of the box model and do, but my point is to do this type of analysis, to do this type of insight. If you try to download this into a spreadsheet every month and recreate this type of chart, it's going to take you a couple hours. So build that into your data model. And so now you can see this over time, or you can revisit it. You can understand, wow, I've got a real problem, particularly with maybe a department. I've been using project manager, but that could be department. It could be work type. It could be any sort of thing that you're looking at. Yeah. Where are we good at forecasting or projecting our costs, and where are we weak? And what's that mean to me against the backlog I have in terms of the accuracy of am I going to get profit fade or not? So,
Ben, did you have another chart to show? Because we were at
I
the
did not. No, I'm all done.
perfect. You would think we planned for this. This is great. Any closing comments, Ben, for the audience? I don't see any questions. Some nice comments, but no questions. Any other closing thoughts?
No, just the backlog. WIP deserves more analysis than we give it. We've spent a lot of time preparing the WIP every month, but we don't have enough time to do the digging into what's that mean and what's the changes mean over time. And I guess that's my soapbox is build a model that you can analyze how WIP has changed and get more insight into your business.
Well, Ben, once again, I thank you so much for taking the time to join. You always do a great job. Something tells me you'll probably be back, but I'll save that for another day. Everybody out there, thanks for joining us for these 15 minutes. If you have questions, just please reach out. Anybody at Preferred Strategies. In fact, there's our website if you want to just learn anything more. We have a lot of educational resources for you there. So, once again, thank you. Have a great day.